Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Mike Friesen. With us for our program today, Assemblyman Al Graf. Al Graf represents the 5th Assembly District. That includes parts of Suffolk County. We thank you folks all across Long Island for joining us for our program today. Al Graf, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
What's going on here at the State Cap? This is your chance to let the folks know what's going on here in Albany, and you're already shaking your head.
It's like a bizarro world, you know. I mean, some of the legislation that comes out. Last week we did the Raise the Age Bill, which I call the Gang Recruitment Act. And
this bill would raise the age of certain offenses when you can be charged as an adult.
Right.
Is that right?
From 16 to 18. So, but what you have to look at is if a person, there's a whole variety of sex crimes they're talking about. You know, molestation of a child, okay, using a child in a sexual performance, you know, to put it out on the internet and stuff like that. And you're talking a person one day short of their 18th birthday, all right? So if they're arrested for that, they go to family court. They get adjudicated a child.
That's the big difference here.
Right, and they don't have to go on a sex offender registry list. They have sex trafficking and everything else. All of these horrific crimes, right, sex crimes, that they wouldn't have to go register as a sex offender, and they wouldn't have to submit DNA, right? You look at some of the other ones, you know, sale of a firearm, you know, tampering with a witness, tampering with a judge, right? So they can go out, beat up witnesses, beat up the judge, you know. So if you have one of their friends who's a gangbanger with them is up for trial, they can tamper with witnesses. That's why I call it the Gang Recruitment Act. All kinds of drug sales. We have an opioid epidemic out there, a heroin epidemic out there, and you're going to give them a free pass. And we're talking a person that's one day shy of their 18th birthday. So you have a person that's one day shy of their 18th birthday and they molest a 4-year-old child, okay, they're going to send them to family court. It's amazing.
The way it is right now, if you're 16 or older, you are tried on all those crimes as an adult, and they want to change it instead of 16 and older to 18 and older.
Right. And the thing is they say, well, the really bad crimes, we're going to make them go to a youth part, okay? However, there's a vehicle for that to go to family court, right? And in a debate, you'd see that. They admit that there is a vehicle. You could talk about murder of a police officer. You could talk about first-degree rape, all right? So you'll have a kid that's one day shy of his 18th birthday, rapes a 4-year-old child, and there's a possibility that that can go to family court. He'd get adjudicated a youth, right, not convicted, and he wouldn't have to give DNA, and he wouldn't have to go on a sex offender registry list. It's insane. We debated this bill. I went through everything with them. It's just, I don't know how to describe it.
Let's let some of what you said on the floor of the Assembly try to help you describe it and put those words back into your mouth. We'll go to the floor of the Assembly with Al Graf.
What you call raise the age here, I call the Gang Recruitment Act, okay? Because this is a great tool to be able to recruit younger members, you know, of our community to enter gangs. It's also great when they're sitting on, you know, to put 16 and 17-year-olds on the street to sell heroin, to sell guns, okay, to turn around and have sexual performance of a child, and all these other horrific crimes, all right? They can go out and tamper with witnesses in criminal cases. They can tamper with jurors. And the poor little misguided criminal, we're not going to hold them accountable. This is a great idea, folks. All right, this one, you know, again, we're finishing up here with the anti-law enforcement package for the last couple days, and this bill is horrific, and it doesn't keep our community safe. This is one, you know, and how about the victims? We keep talking about the poor criminal, all right, the person who is terrorizing their communities. We don't say anything about the victim. We don't talk about the little child that was molested. We don't talk about the person that was going to testify in a trial and got harassed and everything else. We're worried about the poor little criminal. Maybe we should just do away with any type of holding facilities and we can get a bunch of safe spaces where they can pet a puppy, and maybe they won't rob grandma next week. I encourage everybody to vote no on this legislation. Okay, this is going to make our communities unsafe. And, think of some of the crimes I just told you about. Is that really what you want to do in the state of New York? It's unbelievable. This has been an interesting week, and I'm sure it's going to get a lot more interesting before the day is over. You can expect me to vote no on this legislation. Thank you.
It's interesting because what you heard from the side that was putting this legislation out there and in support of this legislation is that it was a humane thing to do, to be thinking in terms of those young people who are committing these crimes, that it would, be better for society.
Well, they keep bringing up this Broder case, okay, and they say that this kid was arrested for a backpack, okay, and he spent 3 years in jail. But it's not true. He was arrested for a robbery, and he was pointed out by the victim of the crime, and the police made the arrest. Then when he went, and he had a co-defendant, so he and his co-defendant went before a judge, okay? The judge released his co-defendant on his own recognizances, all right? But Mr. Broder, right, he was on probation, so they put bail on him. Now you have to understand, there's all kinds of things that can happen during this. Negotiations going. There's something called 180-80. If they don't indict them within a certain amount of time, they got to let them go. There's 30-30. If they don't bring them to trial within a speedy trial, right, then it gets dismissed, right? They were negotiating. His lawyer was negotiating for him. He turned down the plea at the end, right? Then when they went to trial, what happened was, who knows what happened to the victim? The victim could have been gone. The victim could have been dead, right? And it was it was all meant to go forward with the victim's identification of the defendant. So the case got dismissed. He was let out. Then he committed suicide. And they're blaming all of this on that. But what they don't tell you is he had charges pending again, brand new charges. So he had a court date coming up. So, I mean, this is not a good example of what they're talking about. And, I was on the New York City Police Department. I ran into a lot of 16, 17-year-old gangbangers, okay? They're not little warm and fuzzy kids that made a mistake. These are hardened criminals, okay? And they're preying on their communities. And to sit there and think that, you picture them as this poor, misguided youth, okay, is absolutely nonsense. So, I mean, this bill is horrible, right? And they just put it out there. Again, they're searching for a soundbite. It sounds good in the press, so hopefully it doesn't hit the Senate, but I know the Assembly's pushing it and the governor's pushing it. I mean, this is one of many bills. We have the bathroom bill coming up this week, and the bathroom bill is, you can look like me, you can look like you, and I could say I feel like a woman today, and nobody can challenge me on that, right? And I can use any woman's bathroom, any woman's locker room, any woman's shower, and nobody can stop me. And one of the things they say, there's been problems around the country, right? So people that have claimed to be transgender, right, they found them to be sex offenders that are going into women's bathrooms. I have newspaper articles up in my office. One got his way into a women's shelter to say he was a sex offender, and he molested people between the ages of 5 and 53 in a women's shelter. It's one horrific piece of legislation after the other. I don't know what these people are thinking. I mean, I think what they're trying to do is, one, they're always trying to disarm the police. They don't want the police to take any police action, and they don't want to put anybody in jail. And if you look at, and you look at the attitude, you see what's going on a college campus, right? They're not taught to deal with adversity, all right? If they get upset about something, if they get a bad mark on a test, they have a little safe space where they can retreat to, and a Play-Doh station and a coloring station, right? They get to talk to somebody about their feelings, maybe pet a puppy, okay? And the world is okay. This is the agenda that the left is pushing here.
We saw coming out of the national election, the presidential election, that there was a real spotlight on New York City and Los Angeles, on the two coasts, and how differently those two areas and the surrounding regions voted in the presidential election compared to almost all the rest of the country. I mean, New York City and the metro area just thinks about things a little bit differently.
I think people are tired of getting all of this stuff jammed down their throat, okay? And I think that was a reflection of this election. You know, they've just gone so far left, they can't even see the right side of the road, okay? And people are tired of it. I mean, think about this. You have, you know, we educate people, and then they go on to be doctors and lawyers and stuff. Could you imagine, right, a doctor sitting there in the middle of an operation, the patient's bleeding out, right? The doctor gets upset and tells everybody, listen, I have to step out and pet a puppy, okay? That's not going to do the patient much good. So, I mean, you just look at some of the things that they, sometimes I sit there and I debate these bills. I can kill bills, I can change bills, but it's, some of this stuff is just pathetic, to be honest with you.
Let's talk, let's close out in our last few minutes here on something that's really kind of a positive, and you had a chance to fix a change to the STAR rebate program that was made during last year's budget negotiations. This is a good thing, right?
Well, yeah, but they're a year too late, all right? They're the ones that voted for it. We sat there, we debated this. We told them what was going to happen, all right? And they went along blindly with the governor, holding hands, skipping off the cliff, okay? And basically what they did is they hurt the people they represent. They're a year too late. They've done so much damage already, right? They've got to just sit there and not being puppets for this governor and giving him whatever he wants. And they have to actually look out for the people that they represent. So we told them not to do this. Now they come back and fix it. This was like when they cut all the funding for, or a lot of the funding for OPWDD, kids with disabilities. We got up there, we debated them on this bill, all right? They went along and passed it. And then they had to come back and fix it. You know what? What I'm saying to the majority, use your brain, think a little bit, read the bill, know what's in the bill before you turn around and pass it.
What they passed was a change in the STAR program from the credit that you would get on your property tax bill to a rebate check. People still haven't gotten their checks around this date. Let's look at what Al Graf said when it came up for fixing, and then we'll be back to finish up today's Assembly calendar.
Yeah, we're a little late here. The time that we should have stopped this was when the governor put it in the budget. But now we're sitting here with a bill, and we have to ask the governor to sign it if it passes both houses. I would encourage our leadership in both the Senate and the Assembly to make sure that the governor does what we need to have done here. Unfortunately, this House passed the budget with this in it, and now we're sitting there trying to fix a mistake that our side of the aisle tried to tell you about when the governor put it in there. So I would encourage our leadership to really lobby the governor here to sign this, and hopefully, you know, he'll see some reason. Thank you.
We'll have to call you the fixer.
Well, you got to understand, it's easier, I mean, it's easier to stop it than it is to fix it,
right?
Okay? Because what happens is once it goes into law, right, to repeal it or to change it, you got to get little Mario in the governor's office to sign off on it too. And this was his change, right? So all this is political theater, right? And they're constantly doing this. They're constantly passing things. And then they lie to people and tell them, don't worry, we're going to write a bill to fix it. And they know that's garbage, all right? But they keep lying to the public, right? And the time to stop it was when it first comes out.
And that is going to have to be it for us. Assemblyman Al Graf, as always, thanks for joining us today. We want to thank you folks, too, for spending your time. We'll hope to see you soon for our next edition of Assembly Calendar.